Hello, and a very warm welcome to our fourth Youth Research Dialogue in 2023. This episode is part of our thematic online series on evidence-based youth research findings. My name is Carmen Teubel-Kiviniemi. I'm the manager and the coordinator of the European Youth Research Network RAY, which is hosted by the Finnish National Agency for Education. The RAY network itself involves 35 partners all over Europe. National agencies for the European youth programs and national research partners are involved. Yeah, I'm actually very excited to share with you that our next episodes, so still in 2023, but also in 2024, are basically dedicated to our RAY monitoring research project. So the RAY monitoring of the European youth programs. And yeah, today we kick off, we mark the start of this so-called monitoring episodes or monitoring editions. And yeah, so very exciting times. What is the idea behind this and the background? So to put it a bit in a context, for the first time since the start of the pandemic, the RAY network is serving project participants and project team members involved in the Erasmus Plus Youth program and the European Solidarity Corps program. And the surveys have been launched in June 2023 and actually has been closed yesterday. So we have really very fresh findings also. These multilingual online surveys are aiming at analyzing the impact of the programs and their effects on different levels, so individual level, but also organizational, community, and European level. Young people, project participants, and project team members who were part or implemented projects and activities within this Erasmus Plus Youth and the European Solidarity Corps programs are actually asked to reflect on the effects these projects had on topics like participation and sustainability, but also on their own learning pathways and competence development. Yeah, furthermore, also the effects on learning organization and communities, the inclusion of young people with few opportunities, recognition of youth work, and the European dimension are part of this service and thematized. Yeah, for our next episodes within these monitoring editions, we have planned to share insights of preliminary findings and discussing them along different topics and aspects, for example, program priorities, but also program journeys of beneficiaries and the impact on, organizational level, but also reflection on individual level and so on. We also try to involve perspectives for practice and policy within these discussions. Yeah, today we will focus on first exciting findings from our RAY monitoring service for Erasmus Plus Youth. And Lena, who is our moderator today, will tell you a bit more about it in a second. I also want to say thank you to Domagoj, who as always will implement or is responsible for the digital facilitation. And our speakers today are both from the RAY transnational research team. Andrea Horta and Friedemann Schwenzer are here with us today. They work both for Youth Policy Labs, which is a small research agency and think tank in the youth sector based in Berlin. And both of them work with various topics and projects on the intersection of youth work and research, for example, digitalization within the European Youth Field, but also organizational learning and development of youth sector organizations and many more topics. Yeah, from my side, I want to wish you an exciting dialogue and see you after the discussion. And now to you, Lena.
Hello and welcome also from my part to this very interesting youth research dialogue. I am Lena and I will moderate this discussion today. The RAY Research Network has carried out excellent knowledge-based work in the research and development of Erasmus Plus programs with a respectable commitment. Now we are at an exciting crossroads as the results of the post-COVID surveys are currently being completed, and we are hearing the first compilations of the results. I would like to express my greatest appreciation to the researchers of the RAY network for their committed work so far and in the future as well. As I see it, surveys are not just technical tools for collecting feedback. They bring also out the multidimensional potential of the European youth programs, in addition to individual and community learning and insights, also regarding our democracy of society as a whole and its future in Europe and of course also at the global level. This, in my view, is one important potential value of such long-term monitoring methods. As you heard from Carmen, today's Youth Research Dialogue will mark the beginning of the series on the discussion on the RAY monitoring findings for the European youth programs. Today, we are focusing on the monitoring for Erasmus Plus youth program and taking a general look at the survey design and development, as well as sharing first findings from a transnational point of view. Furthermore, we will discuss ideas and takeaway points of this first analysis, which can be relevant for different stakeholders in the policy and practical level. We will hear a short introduction from Andrea and Friedemann about the survey itself, as well as important messages. Afterwards, we will have a dialogue on the first insights with a possibility for the audience to ask questions. So before we go into the presentation, I would like to remind the audience of the great possibility to join the dialogue. We invite you to ask questions either on the Facebook or YouTube chats or via Mentimeter. Simply go to menti.com and type in the code, which is now displayed in the screen. But now, Andrea and Friedemann, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Carmen and Lena, for the excellent introduction. It's great to be here. And without further ado, let's dive into what we're gonna do today. So as a first input, we are gonna looking back a little bit on how we redesigned the RAY monitoring service. And based on this preliminary data we have by now, we prepared 3 main messages from Mon to kick off basically the discussion afterwards. And let's start with the redesign of the RAY monitoring survey. So we had at the beginning a quite ambitious plan. We wanted to be shorter. We wanted to follow a mobile-first approach. We wanted to be more youthful, more nuanced and tailored. And in addition, we also wanted to take all the new and old program priorities into account. So we wanted to cover more fields of interest in a shorter survey. And here's how we approached it. So what we did is basically we got rid of all the questions that are difficult to display on mobile screens in order to have more people answering the survey. On mobile phones, we included smileys as response options to be more youthful. And we took a modularized approach. So not everybody gets to see all the questions, but like only some. So this was to cut down the time of completion a bit. And now we have 3 questionnaires, one for participants taking part in a training activity, and one for project teams. And what happened is there are already some hints of success. So we managed to cut down the time of completion by 4 minutes for participants, and drastically reduced dropout and screen change rates, which is quite nice. And when moving on to the next slide, we to give you a little bit more context of what's in the survey. So everybody gets to see an opening module where we ask questions about motives and inspirations and some overall assessment of the project. And then people get to into the thematic modules. So we have 4 modules here on participation, inclusion, digitalization, and sustainability. So these are the 4 program priorities. And here people only get to see one of the modules here. And a little bit more brief, we have an impact module where reflection module where respondents get to reflect a little bit more in detail about the project, and then a youth pass module where we ask questions about how people used the youth pass certificate, and last but not least, a closing module where we learn a little bit more about the characteristics and demographics of people responding to our survey. And on the next slide, you see where we are standing at the moment. Carmen said we closed the survey, so we have by now more than 20,000 respondents from project participants, and over almost 6,000 respondents from project team members. And for today's sneak peek, we used more than 9,000 respondents from participants from Key Action 1, and more than 2,000 project team responses from Key Action 1. And based on this, we prepared 3 main messages for you. And with this, over to you, Andrea.
Thank you. So yes, let's take a look at the first data that we have. Like Friedemann said, only from participants, in this case of mobilities, which are Key Action 1s are mobilities. The first message is that programs continue to create meaningful and powerful experiences for young people. Next slide, please. So we have new scales from 0 to 10 in the new version of the survey, and this allows us to ask young people not only whether they found their project meaningful, but also how meaningful they found it on a scale from 1 to 10. And we see here in blue that about more than 40% rated their project 10 out of 10. If we look at who rated it 9 or more out of 10, it's about 60%. And if we look at who rated it 8 or more out of 10, is almost 80%. So this means, in other words, that as we know, that we can record something that we already know, which is that projects are a meaningful, a salient thing for young people in their lives. And if we take a look at the yellow scale in the previous slide, yeah, thank you. This is their responses when it comes to how much fun it was. And we see there they follow a very similar pattern. They're very positive responses. So it's not only a very salient experience, but also a very positive salient experience. The next message that we have for you is that Erasmus Plus is not only about fun. As you know, the program has specific priorities, such as fostering the participation of young people in society, and specifically contribution to democracy, and fostering their understanding and engagement with inclusion. And in these 2 areas, we can say that Erasmus Plus lives up to its own goals. For example, we see that more than 30% of our respondents say that after the project, they became more interested in participating in elections, and more than 40% say that after the project, they became more interested in participating in democratic processes. And these are quite big numbers if you think that these are people who were not so interested and became more interested, that they are adding to the pool of young people who are taking part in election processes, for example. As a different or another example, we have one of the questions, which is about how close people felt to Europe before and after the project. As you see on the right, when we ask people how close did you feel to Europe after the project, pretty much nobody answers lower than 5. However, when we ask them to think of how close they felt to Europe before the project, it is about 20% of respondents who say 4 or lower. So this means that nobody is left untouched. Everybody who takes part in a youth mobility, in this case, comes out feeling closer to Europe. And even the people who initially felt maybe not so close or felt alienated or felt like Europe didn't have that much to do with them. This is both for participants from program countries and participants from neighboring partner countries. Then, as one last example on what the program does for inclusion, these are also 2 new questions from our survey. The first one on the left is we asked our participants whether they observed or experienced barriers to inclusion in their project, and we see, if you look at the distribution, that a fair amount of them said that they observed or experienced at least some barriers to inclusion. 0 would be none at all, and 10 would be yes, a lot of barriers. But the great part is that then when we ask the people that said they experienced at least some, whether they were able to overcome these barriers in the project together with everybody else who was involved, we see that most of them say, yes, we could overcome these barriers. And that means that these people went through an experience, through a practical experience of how to make a situation more inclusive, or the project more inclusive. So it's an example of experiential learning and about one of the main priorities of the program. So it's really cool that we get to see this with the new survey. And Friedemann can share the last message that we have today.
The last message is let's continue working on sustainability and digitalization. When we move on to the next slide, we can discover a pattern when we compare the different program priorities. It's always participation and inclusion taking like the a front seat, and sustainability and digitalization taking a back seat. So here we asked project participants for an overall assessment on how digital, sustainable, inclusive, participatory the project was on a scale from 0 to 10. And you see the dark blue and the green, light bluish colors are ranking high, and purple and yellow drawing a different picture. So when we move on to the next slide, we see the pattern repeating. So we ask project teams that organized youth worker mobilities what aspects of the different program priorities they explored in their activities. And we see participation and diversity again is addressed a lot, whereas sustainable development and digital transformation is addressed less. And when we move on to the next slide, we also see that youth workers participating in a youth worker mobility also actually learn less about sustainability and digital transformation. So the message here would be Erasmus Plus is doing well in terms of participation and inclusion, but we still need to work on sustainability and digital transformation. And with that, thank you for the attention for now, for our input, and let's dive into the discussion.
Thank you very much, Andrea and Friedemann, for your very informative and insightful presentation. You have done a huge work in collecting and analyzing the data so far, and it's very interesting now to go into the discussion and having the first findings and results of all your data. And before we start, I remind and encourage the audience to ask questions and bring comments via Facebook, YouTube, or Mentimeter. But let's start with perhaps a little bit more personal question. You prepared the survey in the common process with the RAID network partners, but what is your personal favorite new item and why? Can you, Friedemann, begin?
Yeah, my favorite item is actually not a new one, but an old one that made it to the new survey. So my favorite item is we ask participants whether they improve their ability to discuss political topics seriously. And for me, it's really like an important thing because like maybe the biggest enemy of democracies probably is like ignorance, and discussing political topics seriously is kind of the opposite of being ignorant and not caring. So it's kind of cool to show and being able to also prove that Erasmus Plus projects actually foster this skill. So that's why discussing political topics seriously is probably my favorite item, even though it's not new.
Yeah, I think it makes, when you see the results on these kinds of questions, it makes me feel almost empowered. Like, yeah, we're getting there, we're doing this. Yeah. My favorite item, I think, would be one where we give the respondents a bit of a more open question, and they give us 3 words, or we ask for 3 words that describe their exchange. And I like this just because it's a bit more open, and we can, the surveys are designed along the priorities that the programs that we put into the programs, and then we ask the people, okay, how did these design make it to you? What did it mean to you? And I feel like a more open question will give us information about what other things were salient for young people that we might not have thought of. For example, we haven't analyzed this question yet because we have data in a lot of languages and it's very long. It's a longer process, but I took a sneak peek, and I see a lot of fun, which, okay, not very surprising. But then I see things like friendships, we never ask anything about friendships. So I'm looking forward to seeing all of these words that come directly from the young people, specifically that take our surveys.
Thank you. I think you put very importantly emphasis also on the intergenerational dialogue when also preparing these kinds of surveys and monitoring the program itself, that it's very important to get the input from the young people themselves at how to,
Did we lose only Lena, or did we lose everybody? Did everybody lose us?
Well, are we lost?
Yeah. I think we lost you for a moment, Lena.
You lost me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now you're back.
Okay.
Now you're back.
Okay, great.
Welcome back.
Yeah. Okay, so I just said that it's very important that you have that kind of emphasis on intergenerational dialogue, and young people are seen as agents of the survey themselves. When you are, developing the surveys, young people are involved. It's very important. Well, then I suggest that we move toward Erasmus Plus program priorities, which you, of course, have been discussing all the way along. According to my interpretation, I think that the results, as I said already, interestingly highlight the significance of activities, not only at the individual level and community level and organizational level, but also the level of democracy, which you took up in your first reply as well. Would you like to elaborate on this kind of multi-level relevance thinking about what lessons can be learned specifically for the future of the Erasmus Plus program priorities, which are participation, diversity, inclusion, sustainability, and digitalization. Who wants to start with a reflection?
Yeah. So that's a bit two questions in one. Maybe I would like to talk about how the program approaches different levels of the youth field. So we know that beneficiaries of the European youth programs are the young people, or not beneficiaries, but the people who relate or interact with the programs are the young people, the organizations that are beneficiaries for the programs. And if we also think of so not only Erasmus Plus, but also the Solidarity course, the communities that are where these projects happen, where these volunteering projects happen. And we see not only in this survey, but in other surveys that the communities say, or the leaders, the project leaders say that the projects reach these communities, that there is some intergenerational learning. The communities learn about young people's lives and needs. They are excited about repeating projects. And we also see that the participants themselves say that they think the project made a difference in the community. So we definitely have like a point of contact there. Then there are also kinds of projects, kind of key actions that involve organizations, youth work organizations, where they can collaborate with each other to innovate, to learn from each other, to network. And this is another point of contact. And then there is definitely young people taking part in the different kinds of activities. As we know, usually when you say Erasmus Plus, people would think of youth exchanges, but we have lots of activities. We have like awareness raising campaigns. We have workshops. We have dialogues with politicians. We have projects that are only for organizations, like I said. And and we showed a bit how these young people do learn about or do become inspired about participating in society, do learn about inclusion. We also have them saying things like that they learn to carry perspectives, that they learn to say what they think with conviction. So I think it definitely, from our surveys, it looks like the European youth programs do a good job at using all of these contact points. I don't know if I can sum up then what the overall effect is in society. But maybe you can elaborate more on the specific priorities.
Maybe like Lena was like also pointing towards like the impact on society. And as I already mentioned before, like the Erasmus Plus gives young people an opportunity to foster skills and abilities and attitudes that are really key to democracies, like tackling socio-political challenges, or better to deal with cultural differences, or they are more likely to vote. So I would stress the level of like the individual level, because like a lot of skills are fostered that are crucial for our societies and democracies. And with regards to the program priorities, as I mentioned in my input, Erasmus Plus is doing fairly well with regards to participation and inclusion, but with regards to sustainability and digitalizations, there's still room for improvement. And I see there's also a question coming in from the audience on digitalization. So maybe we take this one.
You're muted, Lena.
Thank you. Very interesting reflections from your side. We have a couple of audience questions. Thank you for your activity, the audience. And we take first the digitalization question, and then I think another question deals with diversity in some way, and we take that after that. But the first audience question is, why do you think digitalization is scoring worse than other program priorities? And what could be done to change this? I think this can go to Friedemann first.
Yeah, we were pondering about that too. So one possible explanation when looking at like digitalization and sustainability is that in comparison to participation and inclusion, these are newer priorities. So it's just like inclusion and participation have been at the core of the programs for a longer time, and for digitalization is only the last program the current program generation we have this priority, so it's kind of a new priority. But like with digitalization in particular, I think there is a contradictory thing going on with the pandemic, because like during the pandemic, a lot of youth work had to move online as well. And there was a boost on digitalization in youth work actually. But and I think like in the pandemic, only a specific part of youth work, namely like meeting online, was addressed, and like all the other parts, like discussing political changes that digitalization brings about, or being creative using digital technologies, these aspects have been neglected. And I think there's a kind of negative attitude on about digitalization, because like there's this feeling like finally the pandemic is over and we can meet again in person and we can get rid of all this digital stuff. And I think this can backfire, because like we are not done with digitalization, but we still need to address it, and maybe address it in a different way, not in the same way we addressed it during the pandemic. So post-pandemic digital realities should actually be different from what happened during the pandemic. So this would be my take on that.
Yeah, and if I can add something, I think it's also the contrast of having the actual practice of youth work kind of struggling a bit, like Friedemann just described, and also having this priority from the programs that kind of pushes people out of their boundaries. And then I think what we record is like this kind of difficulties of being pushed into something new.
Yeah, I think you put very importantly the questions around also the, well, again, intergenerational dialogue, how we understand digitalization and what does it mean for young people themselves, and how can we take their meanings into account when we are developing the program in physical and digital terms. So I think it needs to be taken into account, as you said, that something needs to be done if the scores are not that as good as other replies from the young people themselves. Then we have another question. I think this concerns somehow also a diversity prioritization, and the question is does the survey keep track on the background of responding young people, their age and educational background? Can we see differences in age groups, or, for instance, with young people who need more support? What would you say?
We do keep track of age, or we have traditionally kept track of age, and here we also have a question about it, and of educational background as well. So far, I don't think we can share any insights on this new data. What we have found out on previous surveys is that, especially for youth exchanges, we have a lot of people with university background, because, I mean, that's something that we all think of, right? You think of an Erasmus as like, you go to university and then you do an exchange. Yes, so this is something, I think, at least as far as I know, that we still need to look into, but we do have the data to look into it.
Yeah, thank you. Very important question as well. And then we have a little bit more, perhaps, organizational question. How is the RAY monitoring going to align with the ongoing interim evaluations of the programs? do you want to reply, or we have a background reply here already?
Like our data are supposed to feed into this midterm evaluation, and we made sure to take steps to align things so national partners have the necessary data to build on.
Yeah. And I can say something from our background informants that midterm evaluation says that RAY is supporting national agencies with the national data. They can also use them for the interim, so midterm evaluation by the countries for the European Commission. So there is that kind of dialogue going on. Very important question that as well. I think we don't have any audience questions, so I think I go still into our schedule, our script. Perhaps I go back to a little bit more personal questions as well. You are both very experienced researchers, and you have done this monitoring process, but also very many other youth work related research processes and projects. So if you had all the power based on research to change the Erasmus Plus program or some parts of it, what would you like to change first? And now you can use all your research intelligence or imagination to give some kind of hints to also to those who are planning and taking into account these programs in the perhaps decision-making work.
So one of the things that this question makes me think of is when we were taking a preliminary look, a sneak peek at these data that are now coming in. We see that most of for newcomers in the program, so for the young people who participate for the first time, they mostly learn about it through word of mouth, through friends, also a bit on social media, but yeah. We have this kind of source of young people and of participants that seems to be quite important. And I would think, or I would encourage us to try to act accordingly and think of how to promote the programs through some maybe form of ambassadorship or something like this, because this is not part of the survey, but we also know this from other studies within RAY. We often have the problem that young people are looking for youth work opportunities and international youth work opportunities, and they don't find them. They don't know where to look. Basically it's difficult for them to know. By the way, if there is any young person watching this, you can Google Eurodesk. Yeah, so maybe this is one thing that I would think we can use in the future.
Thank you, Andrea. Very important one. And Friedemann?
Maybe two things. First, like when looking on like all the positive impact these programs have on young people, and like as I already described, like young people learning skills that are really important for our societies and democracies. So it would be kind of cool to scale up, because we have a tool and we can prove that it works. So it would be nice to make these experiences available to even more people, maybe. And second, not related to the MON data, but like to other research I have been involved with. Erasmus Plus is doing a good job in creating experiences that are relevant and meet the expectations of young people. But usually in the implementation and designing of the program itself, young people don't have a say necessarily. So at the German NA, there was, for example, youth advisory board established, and I think this is a really nice step ahead. And I would like to see that more, that young people not only participate in projects or activities, but also get a say on how these programs are designed and implemented.
Thank you. That's a very important question of power and how we share the power across generations. Very important. I hope this will be heard also. Perhaps somehow connected with this, there is one comment from the audience. I think it's worrying that most of the youth exchange participants are university students who already have more possibilities for internationalization. Of course, if this is the case, we must make some kind of development in order to have a more diversity in the programs. I don't know whether you would like to comment on that.
Yeah, I think this is only for the youth exchange, right? There's not the programs are a lot more than just youth exchange, and also we do have data on which or how many participants self-identify as young people with fewer opportunities, which for the ones who don't know are young people who have less opportunities than their peers along different dimensions. And we do already reach a large amount of these people. I think it was something like 60% or so. So yes, we need more diversity. Definitely, we need to continue working on this. But if we look at the projects and the programs as a whole, and also if we look at the way that these people self-identify and look at their stories, maybe beyond their educational stories, we are already definitely on the right track when it comes to inclusion in this sense.
Thank you. Our time is coming to an end, and I think I'll take as a last question still an audience question, and I think you can also say something about what is happening next for the surveys while answering these questions. And the question is, there are many other parallel research activities happening by organizations, national agencies, trainers, etc. What do you suggest to not overwhelm the respondents and align these efforts while keeping diversity?
Yes, I mean, it's a general problem that there's the risk of over-researching a population and to foster survey fatigue, so that people get annoyed getting another survey. And we are, of course, cautious and know about this phenomenon and always take the decision to launch a survey really carefully and do take a lot of effort to align research interests. On the one hand, in the cosmos of Erasmus+, there are a lot of research activities going on, but also beyond. And so we are working on that. We are aware of that. And yes, totally agreed. It's important to not waste resources, but build on data other people produce. And we are also making our data available in case other researchers want to build their own research on that, so they don't have to collect these data themselves, but can turn to us, and we are happily grant them access to our data.
Yeah, I agree. I think basically it's about collaborating with each other, talking to each other, so that we don't ask the same question a lot of times. And we do this, for example, with our thematic projects. We do collaborate with the snacks, which are also doing research on similar priorities or similar topics, and we try to work together. And this would be, for example, an example of how we try to work together in this way.
Thank you very much for your input and very interesting reflections, Andrea and Friedemann. And the discussion will develop certainly and going on in the next youth research dialogues. And also thank for the audience. You have been joining our dialogue in a very active way. Thank you very much for everybody.
Thank you. I think, Tomagoy, you want to say something also?
Yeah, thank you also for joining this dialogue. And in case, if you would like to watch again this series, we have really good news. It will be available online, both on YouTube and on Facebook as well.
Yeah, thank you also from my side. As you see, the time is always running very quickly, and we would still have had a lot of questions. But the good thing is this was only the first episode of these monitoring editions. The next one actually will happen on the 29th of November. So please check out our website and our RAY social media channels for any updates. I also want to invite you to share with us in what kind of topics or findings from our RAY monitoring service you would be especially interested in. So you can share it with us via write us an email or share it with us on Facebook, and we try to accommodate your wishes then in the next dialogues. Yeah, thank you, Lena and Domagoj, and yeah, we're happy to see you soon again. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.